everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Trailhead. This week we have an incredible guest, one that I was on the Wonderland Trail a few years ago and just came across his meals. And so it's Chris Cage with Greenbelly Meals. How are you, Chris?
Craig, what's up, man? Good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time to be on. I kind of let you know about, I ran into you at Trail Days a couple weeks back and have been wanting to kind of just talk to you a little bit about your meals because they taste incredible. It was a guy that I had met on the trail and we were at a resupply point and he was putting some of his meals in there and he said, hey, take one of these. They're awesome. So I took one halfway, through the trail. I was like, oh, this is incredible because there's some meals out there that are pretty crappy. We all know. And so I was like, hey, tastes good. I think you originally from Atlanta. So I had a little bit of connection, I thought, with that. I know you're living somewhere else now, but wanted to have you on to just talk about the idea behind it, how you came up with the idea especially, and the ups and downs of creating a meal, especially when you're throwing food inside somebody. It's not as easy as maybe a backpack or something like that. So I guess just go ahead and tell us a little bit more about Greenbelly and then the history.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, shout out to that guy on the Wonderland Trail. Where in
Yeah.
Atlanta are you?
I'm out near Lake Lanier,
Okay,
so
cool. Yeah, yeah.
Buford
I went up.
area.
Yeah, I grew up going there sometimes. But yeah, right on. Nice to hear from a fellow Georgian.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess how far back to go, but the basic kind of the background is I was an accountant right after college,
Yeah.
and I did not love my job. Actually, I mean, it was fine. I liked the people that I was working with, yada yada, but it just
Yeah.
wasn't really somewhere I saw me being long term. So I made the decision to save up some money and quit, and ultimately ended up embarking on about 2 year sort of adventure journey. I went and volunteered in Asia for a few months. I did a long bicycle tour in New Zealand for several months, and then I
Oh,
came
cool.
back and thru-hiked the Appalachian Trail, for 6 months. And after doing all that, my savings was almost obliterated, and I was thinking about I had a real decision to make. Do I want to go back to being an accountant,
Mhm.
or do I want to try to do something else? And I think at the time I was like mid 20s, and I made the decision to start this business idea. And I actually had several business ideas I was tinkering with and thinking about during those travels. And even when I came back, the first initial idea was to make a really high calorie kind of gloop, which was going to be peanut butter, honey, all sorts of stuff like that. Just
Yeah.
anything to pound in some calories. So it was really top of mind of after Thrick and the AT. So I started actually coming up with some like gloop recipes in my mom's kitchen. When I finished up all that travel, I was living at home with my parents because
Yeah.
my savings were thin, and I ultimately used that remaining part of my savings to hire what's called a food scientist and chef and help me formulate a a bar
Yeah.
that was high calorie, tasted good, had a clean label, and stable shelf life, stuck together, all the,
Yeah.
classic bar stuff. And that's actually a fairly tall order to get all that stuff kind of nailed down. So I worked with him for several months, iterating, going back and forth with samples. And then ultimately, when we had a bar that I started thinking was, let's say 80, 90% there, I took it to another time I went to Trail Days, which I didn't go when I was through hiking, but I went
Yeah.
in Trail Days in, I guess that was 2015 maybe, and handed out a bunch of these samples of the bars where I thought
Yeah.
that they were pretty good, and got a bunch of feedback from hikers. Should we make this more salty? Blah blah blah,
Yeah.
and ultimately got a bar that was I felt good about. And uh, then that was 10 years ago. So
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, then I really focused a lot on just getting the word out.
Yeah. So when So your business, I guess when did you officially start like selling the bar and everything? What year was that, do you think?
It was either late 2014 or early 2015.
Okay. Okay. And
Uh,
then
yeah.
did you start with just one meal, or was it, because I know some people they start with one versus they start with like three or four.
Yeah, we started with 3 flavors, and now we have 5 of the main SKU line
Yeah.
and another of a higher protein line, so now we have 6, but we started off with 3 core flavors.
Okay. And so I guess my the question I always like to ask people too is, starting, and I know it's is hard, especially I didn't even know you could hire. Well, I knew you could hire a food scientist, but I didn't even think you could start just there, because a lot of people will just start throwing stuff together like the gloop you're talking about. But when you were starting it out and everything, what was one of the hurdles that you kind of ran into at the beginning? Because I guess the good thing is you don't have cooked meats and stuff like that in yours. Yours is like a bar, but it's still got ingredients that you still have to do FDA stuff and everything. So
For sure, there's a ton of
yeah,
headache, honestly, in the beginning. There was, well, I alluded to some of those things that I was looking for in the bar,
yeah,
but all those kind of things started to come. I realized those were problems that I needed to solve as I was tinkering in my mom's kitchen. I
yeah,
was like, I don't know if this tastes very good. I don't know if I can make this at scale. I don't know what the shelf life of this is going to be. I had all of those questions and those issues,
yeah,
and I think that's I don't know how long into, like, tinkering, a few months into tinkering that I realized I felt like I was in over my head
yeah,
to be making this product. I also, like, I'm not a foodie. I'll eat anything,
yeah,
and I think I felt like if I were to be making and formulating my own thing, I probably, at least for the taste profile, would probably set the bar lower than if I did and actually worked with
yeah,
somebody who knew what they were talking about. So thankfully, the guy that I started working with had um, he had he trained as a chef in France, so he had like a good idea of
okay,
what a good taste would taste like.
yeah,
But anyway, honestly, just formulating the product to getting the product to where I felt good about it was a big hurdle. And then after that, the hurdles were anything and everything you think of starting a business. I was in small town Georgia. I was living with my parents. I didn't have much. I had friends that were in Atlanta, but I didn't
yeah,
have much social life where I was. So I was just grinding at my
yeah,
parents' house, praying for this business to get some revenue so I could move out. And I was doing everything on my. I'm not gonna say everything. My mom was helping me with some,
yeah,
but she was helping me. She was helping me make some of the stuff and do the dishes. She was helping me make like bar batches and do some of the dishes, measure the ingredients. She was
yeah,
kind of like my production assistant. But otherwise, I was doing the marketing, customer service. I was, boxing up all the orders, walking up to the post office, shipping them. All that stuff was. It
yeah,
was good because it was good for me to see, kind of the mechanics of every nook and cranny of the business, and that was really good for me to see, but it was also extremely stressful, and I was also having to learn each one of those new sorts of things and
yeah,
how it worked and, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah.
the early year was, probably the
Yeah.
hardest.
At what point in your business did you kind of see it start to take off, and you would be able to like say, "Oh, I have to hire this, or I have to do now this in a factory, or buy these certain machines"? Because I know some people will do it. Everybody does it differently, right? Some people go all in, and then some people like take that slow ramp of growth.
I don't remember what the revenue threshold was, but there was something called, and it might still be in place, and it was called cottage food laws. And the laws are designed to enable
Mhm.
small food manufacturer or producers, think
Yeah.
about the grandmother who makes cookies and goes and sells it at the
Yeah.
farmer's market. There are laws that will allow those types of people to go and do that sort of thing. So I was aware that we were fine, on
Yeah.
like the small scale doing it out of my mom's kitchen. I think it started being an issue when two things started happening. You started shipping e-commerce
Yeah.
and shipping across state lines. I think that might have pushed us into where we needed to go to a proper facility. And then the second thing is revenue thresholds. I want to say it's I want to say it's like $50,000
Okay.
is the cap that you need to start going to a proper facility. So that was the first thing I outsourced, and it was also the thing that I disliked. The marketing was always something I enjoyed. I was happy to go full throttle on the
Yeah.
marketing, and the cooking. It was the most stressful, and it was my least favorite thing to do. It was like
Yeah.
I'm having to tinker measuring all these ingredients, and I remember so many times I would have plans for the weekend or the following week, and then maybe a larger order would come in, and I would just have to scrap my plans and go and
Yeah.
make that stuff. So that was the first thing that I really sort of outsourced. And even outsourcing is a big word.
Yeah.
It was a mom and pop shop that ended up taking. Oh, sorry, I forgot. I launched a Kickstarter. I launched a
Okay.
Kickstarter in 2015, and that raised $19,000, which doesn't sound like much now, but at the time it was
Yeah.
pivotal for me because it allowed me to say, "Hey, I'm making all these small batches in my mom's kitchen. Now I'm going to go to this co-packer with a $19,000, essentially a $19,000 PO, and say,
Yeah.
hey, now we can kind of get up and running with this thing." So that was the first thing I did is get that off my plate, and it was huge, and it also allowed me to like get out of my parents' house, which
Yeah.
was emotionally
Yeah.
huge. Yeah.
I couldn't live with my parents for like 10 seconds. So I
In many
love them,
ways,
but
I think there's like a taboo in the US that living with your parents is like loserville.
yeah.
And I kind of want to push back on that because
Yeah.
and if I didn't have that like societal pressure being like I felt like a loser,
Yeah.
there are a lot of great things about it. You
Oh
get to
yeah.
hang out with your parents and you're sharing meals with them. Like most of the world does that. And I think it's actually
Exactly.
really cool. I just felt like a loser. And
Yeah.
that was what was the problem.
Yeah. It's the society that's telling you what's wrong with you. You're still at home with your parents.
For sure. And
Um,
now when I hear somebody lives with their parents, I'm like, keep it up, man. Keep it
yeah,
up.
man. So I guess from there, and saying that you kind of enjoyed the marketing side, I guess I'll kind of flip it just a little bit and talk about um, the marketing that you guys are doing at Greenbelly. Because I see a lot of the videos that you guys have been doing over the last couple of years, and I
Yeah.
love the investigative stuff that you're doing. It's kind of like Steve with My Life Outdoors. He does that kind of thing too, right? And I love that sciency kind of mythbuster kind of stuff. And so, do you find like the marketing is your baby, or do you have a team of people that help you with that, or what's your team size to begin with, I guess?
The marketing is my baby.
Yeah.
It's changed up a little bit. My marketing manager was in charge of it more maybe like 2 years ago,
Hmm.
and for the amount of resources that we were putting into it, whether that's time or money, I think still relatively speaking, it's still not a crazy amount of resources, but we're still a small team, so relatively speaking, it felt like a disproportionate amount of resources were being allocated to YouTube relative to how much ROI I felt like we were getting on
Yeah.
YouTube. And I think I ended up sort of facing a question where I was saying, do we want to continue doing YouTube? Do we want to stop YouTube or should we do something different? And
Yeah.
the big decision I ended up making was I'm going to roll up my sleeves and kind of be the creator and the face behind YouTube.
Yeah.
And if I was going to do that, I would have to be much more involved in everything from the front end and the back end because these words are coming out of my mouth. I have to be scripting them.
Yeah.
I can't. These can't be coming from a narrator. These can't be coming from a marketing manager. These have to be coming from me.
Yeah.
So the channel started to do. I think before it was just kind of like another outlet of content to be putting something out there on the internet, but it really started to be a, a proper marketing channel
Yeah.
with a positive ROI when I became the face behind the channel. So
Yeah.
I'm heavily involved in it. I mean, we have a video editor that I work with. I have a technical thumbnail designer that I'll hand off some like specific requests. I've got a great videographer that I'll travel with. He's here in Austin, Texas. Got an operations manager that helps me maybe with some just some really kind of like
Yeah.
maybe some outreach or something like
Yeah.
that. But in general, I'm the, I'm the guy doing all the YouTube.
Yeah. Do you think that, and I think it's a great thing for especially small brands, medium brands or whatever, is to still have a face behind it, and especially the owner, just because I feel like people connect a lot more and want to buy into that product when they connect in an emotional level, not just, hey, this is a cool product, and then they have a promo video that comes out that says, hey, this is our new bar. But when you have this thing behind it, like even the videos that you have nothing to do with Greenbelly Meals, but then, you just have a little blurb in there about it. But people go, oh man, I love Chris's stuff that he's creating. I want to eat his meals because he's such a great guy. You kind of get that feeling. And I'm trying to push more of my clients to kind of do a little bit of that, even with social, just to let them, like, they need to connect more with their consumer.
I mean, I could talk about that for ever. I
Yeah.
think, well, just short answer, I agree, and it's funny, I actually did a video on, have you followed the Dan Durston gear and
Uh-huh.
all that? Have you
Yeah.
followed his craze? I was doing a video not too long ago and interviewed Dan, and I've just kind of had this thought about what makes Dan Durston stand out. Why is he
Yeah.
exploding? And I was like, the big difference is because he's not a logo; it's Dan,
Yeah.
and we just relate to a human in a fundamentally different way than we do a company.
Yeah.
And there's so many other examples of that. I kind of touch on that in that video, but I'm a huge music guy, and it's been funny. I think there's been a large shift away from bands to
Mhm.
individuals, and I think there are a lot of reasons for that, but
Yeah.
economics has changed, but I think one of them also is just how people connect with individuals versus groups. But
Yeah.
um, anyway, I think when I was doing that Dan Durston video, I was also having an epiphany as well, that I was starting to experience some of that myself, that I've been, whether intentionally or coincidentally,
Mhm.
incorporating my face more into what people associate with when they think of
Yeah.
Greenbelly. And there are pros and cons to that. I think overall the pros outweigh the cons. I think the cons are really just the cringe factor. I don't know about your clients, but I feel like it was a big decision for me, and still is something I struggle with, putting
Yeah.
my face out there,
Yeah.
because I'll see friends around town and be like, "Oh, I saw your video," and I think there's, for me at least, a big fear of, this is just with anything, but there's always a fear of failing.
Yeah.
And if you fail, failing sucks. If you're working hard on something and fail, that really sucks. If you do both those things and everybody sees it, that makes it even suck more.
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of people, myself included, have a lot of apprehension about putting your face out there. But I
Yeah.
think ultimately it just makes sense. I think the quality of content increases when you're putting your face out there, because your face is on it. You want it to
Yeah.
be good. People connect with it more. It's just so much more authentic. You're like, oh, this is, you might say like, oh, does this person have a personality or not? But even like, a quiet, introverted guy is going to be, there's just, it's a human. You're connecting with that
Yeah.
so much more. So I would argue that there's really, the personality might not matter much unless you're just a total jerk.
Yeah.
But I don't think many people are jerks, actually. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people, especially in the outdoor space, most of the people are just pretty good folks. So
Oh yeah.
anyway, I think it's been really, really important, and something I'm going to probably be leaning into more.
Yeah. I feel like some people, you have this preconceived notion of, oh, if I put my face out there, people are going to think maybe I'm full of myself and it's all about me, but you really just want to connect. I heard someone say this a long time ago, um, which was, I can't say it exactly right, but where, like, when you finally get over yourself and stop being self-conscious about yourself, is when you'll succeed in the social media space and
Huh.
everything. Because sometimes you get online, like, even when I started this podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm self-conscious about this part of my face, or, even talking, or, what are people going to think about my backdrop and everything else? I'm like, who cares? Like, you're going to have haters. My wife does her social media thing, and she has, over 100,000 followers on that, and the comedy stuff that she does. I mean, she
Oh, that's
deletes
so
a lot of
cool.
stuff.
What's her channel? I want to look it
So
up.
it's called Asian Mom White Dad. So it's like,
Okay.
Asian
I'm
Mom
guessing
White
that's
Dad.
you.
Yeah, family stereotype. So
Oh, that's
We do
fun.
collabs with all kinds of brands and stuff like that now because she's grown it to what it is. And she's gotten over herself. And so she would put me on camera and I would be like, oh, stop putting me on stories. And let me suck my gut in or something like that. And I was like,
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you're like, who cares? No matter what, you're going to have haters. But I think for a company, that's perfect. You got, even if you're a boring old rock, just people seeing you doing whatever, they're going to be like, oh, I can connect with them on some level and I want to buy that product. So
I think it's easy. Whatever you just said about being self-conscious about how you're appearing, how you're presenting your thoughts, all of you becomes under scrutiny when you put your face out there. And
yeah,
especially if there's a record button, somebody
yeah,
can go back and watch it multiple times. And you're
yeah,
like, dude, I'm doing this live. Like,
yeah,
I'm not be able to think through. But I think in many ways, most people, not everybody, have an understanding and appreciate that human element. And I
yeah,
think, if anything, that imperfection might go a long way. And we're seeing that in politics. I'm not going to mention any
yeah,
politicians, but I think we're just seeing this shift in politicians as well, that we want somebody who is human, that isn't giving us a canned,
yeah,
a canned response. So,
yeah,
but I mean, it's easier said from the viewer perspective than the creator's perspective, because I know
yeah,
I still just, I'm like, yeah, like you said, sucking in your gut. There'll be some
yeah,
day I have like huge bags under my eyes, and I'm
yeah,
like, dude, I don't want to look like that.
yeah. I wonder just from a, because it's easier for a small company sometimes to do that because it's a small group of people versus, say, the CEO of Mattel getting on and like doing funny videos or normal videos or doing something. I never remember when the McDonald's CEO took that tiny bite of the McDonald's burger and then it kind of blew up online. So then I think the Burger King guy was like, okay, I'm going to show you how to take a real bite of a burger and everything. And I was like, but that was great marketing for everybody. And it's like, I think they need to be out there more than they think they need to.
I think the small brands are going to be taking the plunge, or I mean, they already have been taking the plunge,
Yeah.
but, and then I think inevitably there's going to be some integration. I don't know what that'll look like, but I think that some bigger brands will start taking the jump. But
Yeah.
I don't know, that is an interesting thing about it, because it's thinking about the CEOs. Those are very high paid people that are
Yeah.
extremely busy. They come typically from Ivy League backgrounds, and
Yeah.
just the idea that they're spending most of their time crafting their
Yeah.
their YouTube presence, or whatever their social media presence, is an interesting dynamic.
Yeah. Um, cool. Well, okay. So I guess just shifting gears a little bit then, kind of going into a moment you realize that maybe whether the social media thing or even just your company, when did you kind of realize, oh, boom, like this is working? Was it like a big order or a big sale or what is it that just was like, wow, this is really working now?
I don't know if I had a single moment. I think it was honestly a linear progression, especially in those early years. I'd say there were maybe a few milestones. The milestone number one was getting out of my parents' house.
Yeah.
I had enough revenue to go. I was living overseas actually in very cheap apartments, but that was milestone number one, is saying that I have enough revenue to be going and getting out of my parents' house. I think milestone two was somewhere around 2017-ish. A couple things happened in 2017. One was getting on Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan
Uh,
it probably increased Greenbelly's size. I'm guessing 50% or something like that.
wow.
And we were a small company, right? And we
Yeah.
still are, but so I mean, it's hard to quantify that, but that was a boost. And the other thing is, I was really doing a lot of written SEO content at the time, and we started getting hundreds of thousands of visitors a month from SEO. So
Yeah.
2017 felt like another big milestone where I was like, I think I figured out like a profitable marketing channel, which was creating SEO content
Yeah.
and being able to drive a lot of traffic to the website. And then
Yeah.
if this is considered a third milestone, this isn't quite really answering exactly what you're asking about, like when I felt like we made it, but it is another milestone I would say, is in really just in the past year or so of doing YouTube, is kind of opening up what I would say would be a second marketing channel.
Mhm.
But I don't know if any of those were like, at the moment where I was like, oh, okay, this is it though.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of people don't necessarily have like a boom, it just took off kind of a moment. But I think the slow growth always helps a company just grow healthier than massive growth. I mean, there are those one-offs and stuff like that, but yeah. So I guess how has your relationship changed with the outdoors as your business has grown? Because I know some people, your business grows and now you just don't have time to hit the trail like you used to, or have trips. I think maybe the YouTube content you're creating is actually helping you maybe connect back with the outdoors.
100%. I think, uh, I don't know if it's actually that I've been working more that has taken me away from the outdoors. I actually think strangely it's my location.
Yeah.
I was living overseas for a long time, and I got outdoors a decent amount wherever I was living because I was
Yeah.
typically living in fairly outdoorsy places. Whether that was Central America, Southeast Asia, Europe, I was always kind of near something pretty outdoors. And even in the States, I remember I lived in Chattanooga, Tennessee for a while. There are a ton of mountains there. Spent a little time in the Rockies, Canadian Rockies. So even if I was working a lot, I felt like I was always pretty close to the outdoors. I moved to Texas about 5 years ago. In Texas, there have been so many things about Austin specifically that I love.
Yeah.
But they're also like the outdoors here are just not that great.
Yeah.
The public lands are limited. The terrain diversity is limited. I still think they're pretty outdoors here, but if I'm being honest, I just don't feel as thrilled to go on a weekend backpacking trip near Austin, Texas, just because I just don't think it's that cool. I just don't think
Yeah.
it's that cool.
Yeah.
So I think it's less work, more, and me being in Austin, Texas, I think that has
Yeah.
pulled away from that. But you're right on the YouTube thing, is in many ways the YouTube has been a blessing in that because whenever if I ever want to go do like if I'm ever investing a lot of time into a cool video, it's typically going to be shot outdoors,
Yeah.
and we've gone to several locations across the country to be filming, and we're planning more stuff to be filming across the country. So um I think in a way the work is going to be getting me back outside more.
That's cool. And I think it's great that you have a team that you can do it too. Because I know from my side of it, whenever I'm shooting photos, because sometimes I'm shooting like models and stuff like that, but usually I'm shooting myself or my wife or a good friend of mine will go on a hike and I'll have a brand that I can kind of shoot depending on what their needs are. But I don't get to enjoy the outdoors as much when I'm filming myself versus maybe you have your friend who films you. You get to kind of like be the talent a little bit more.
Uh, what you're describing sounds similar to me. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
working, and
Yeah.
usually if we're flying somewhere, we're on the clock, like we're trying to get
Yeah.
stuff. But I mean, you're still like outside in a cool
Yeah.
setting. You're in a cool location. Like there is a lot of appreciation going on. But I think what you said, I would fall into that as well. Like we're out there, we're on the clock.
Yeah. There's nothing worse than you're outside and you're like, you want to enjoy the sunset, but then you're like, I can't enjoy the sunset because this is prime shooting time for me. And so I'm bothering my wife. My wife's like, oh, look at the beautiful sunset. We're in the Grand Canyon. Like, I know, go stand over there, go do this, go do this.
It's golden hour, baby.
Yeah, we got to get, this is when we got to make the money right here. So
Are you a
um,
morning guy?
I am a morning and a night person. I can't sleep ever. That's my problem, I think.
Oh,
So
dang. Okay. I was gonna say I wish I was a morning person so I could get up and film then, but we end up oftentimes filming in the middle of the day in horrendous light just because I'm
yeah,
such a baby with getting up in the morning. I'm like, my buddy Josh was like, "Hey, we're gonna get up and after tomorrow." I'm like, "No,
you're
we're
like,
gonna
no,
we're
we're
gonna
done.
film this at midday."
It's funny when I reach out to brands, this is totally just a tangent, I guess, but like when I reach out to brands saying, hey, I'm going to be on this trip and I have the ability to shoot X, Y, and Z for you. I have like, let's say I'm shooting a food brand and then I have a room to do like a tent or a sleeping bag or something like that because they're not competing brands and stuff. And then when I first started doing this, I would get the pushback of, I'm not paying for your trip. And I'm like, but you're not paying for my trip. Like, I'm going to create amazing stuff for you and I'm going to charge you for it just as much as you would pay. And I was like, why am I getting that pushback on I'm going to pay for your trip?
That's
And
really
they're,
weird that you said it because to me that's actually a fairly common industry standard. I've known a
yeah,
lot of, especially in the video world, a lot of creators that do all sorts of shoots, and that's the
Yeah.
package. I mean,
Yeah.
like, that's so anyway, I'm actually surprised you got pushback on that because that seems to me to be a pretty not even industry standard as
Yeah.
far as the outdoors. That's like a creator standard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. And one of the people that I got pushback from, I ended up working for them quite a bit afterwards. It was just explaining to them, like, you're not paying for a trip for me. I was like, this is not a trip. This is work. Yes, I'm going to be going outside and it's going to look like on social media I'm enjoying myself, but I'm going to be dead tired because I'm going to be up shooting time lapses at night and then waking up early morning to get the sunrise. I'll sleep in the middle of the day, but then I got to hike to the next location. So now I've got to, and that's my tangent on on that
no,
thing.
I'm surprised to hear that. I feel like that's yeah, it's like I said, very
Yeah.
standard.
I guess kind of shifting gears then, or I guess, what's something that you've changed your mind about since launching your company in terms of like maybe the
Mm.
outdoor space, or, if you could have started it differently, would have you have started a different way?
Um, I'll say a few ideas come to mind. I don't know if this answers it
Mhm.
quite like you're asking. We talked a little bit about the putting my face out there more, but that's for sure one. I wish I would have done that sooner, and I wish I would have gone harder on
Yeah.
that. But some other things that I might have wished I would done. I don't know if I wish I would have done this, but because we've been very e-commerce, direct to consumer focused,
Mhm.
and through website sales. But I've always been intrigued, I should say, by retail. The outdoor food space is dominated by retail,
Yeah.
and I feel like sometimes I'm working in a space that it just isn't made for me.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that I would be curious if I were to restart Greenbelly again, is to not go so hard on direct to consumer and see about going a little bit more wholesale, a little bit more retail, because of all the D2C things you're seeing disrupted or have been disrupted over the
Mhm.
past decade. Well, a lot of people still buy their food in stores.
Yeah.
And I mean, unless you're doing subscription stuff, which I just don't think our current meals are always the best for subscription. So I
Mhm.
don't think that it's just not. I sometimes wonder if that D2C business model has been the best business model for us
Yeah.
instead of prioritizing or pursuing retail more. But I don't know if it's a regret. I think
Yeah.
it's just something that's been on the back of my mind that would have been a completely different path than
Yeah.
the one I've been on.
I think it's good to say for people who are listening who are trying to create a food business and stuff like that too. Like, personally, for me, outside of a few things that I buy online, I'll wait till I get to my destination for me to kind of fill up on meals. I'll go to Trader Joe's once I get into town, and get my stuff. There are certain things like
100%.
certain meals and your bars that I'll grab online, um, and stuff like that. But for the most part, yeah, I kind of stock up as soon as I get to the trail before I get to the trailhead.
I think most people do, and I think that that behavior is something that's in direct contrast to the business model that I've pursued.
Yeah. What do you
S-
think is a way to jump over that hurdle, maybe for the
I
future?
think
Some ideas.
I mean really what I've been trying to do is that I'm going broad awareness on YouTube right
Yeah.
now. Um, I also have been tinkering. I made a video about this last year as well, as tinkering in flavor profile. Are we
Hmm.
going to be going more low sugar, higher protein in general, appealing to a broader market, but still making sure that the nutrition would be great for people really
Yeah.
pushing things outdoors. But that sort of product could lend itself more, I think, to being more D2C.
Yeah.
I've also thought about playing with the form. We have a 2 bars in 1 pouch now,
Hmm.
and in many ways, I think that's been an X factor for us and a differentiator for us, but it's also been operationally a huge headache.
Yeah.
Is they basically have to manually pack 2 bars into a pouch, which
Okay.
adds a lot of, uh, uh, long story short, a lot of headache.
Yeah.
So, when you talk about going D2C, um, there would be some other things that would have to probably change in the positioning and,
Yeah.
who we're targeting and things like that.
Yeah. could you do like, have you ever thought about doing like this, the single bars and the smaller packaging, that kind of thing?
For sure. Again, it feels risky.
Yeah.
On one hand, I think if anything, if we do go that route, it would be to help, smooth out some operations. But I think that I actually was just running a survey with our customers asking how would you feel about single versus double bar
Yeah.
packaging, and it wasn't that clear, to be honest.
Yeah.
It was kind of all over the place about what people were wanting, and I don't know how much of that is we should listen to our customers versus we should be looking into the future and seeing what actually makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer for that right now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, because I'm just thinking like, you know, I for anybody listening, you've never tried a Greenbelly meal, they're awesome. They're like Rice Krispie squares. They taste so good. They're like really, really good. And I'll run to Kroger to get some snacks for my kids before their sports. And I'll go to the snack bar aisle and I'll get them like a, I don't know, Kind bar or something like that. And I'm like, oh, I could totally just grab a single Greenbelly and give it to them versus the full package. But
So if I'm just curious from your perspective,
yeah,
how would you feel if I were to say this is an or, not an and,
yeah,
meaning an or? So if we were to go current double bar package or single bar package, which one would you, if you would you
yeah, yeah.
care at all, or which would you prefer?
Me personally, I think I usually go. I only eat one at a time. I usually just go single bar. That way, I would just throw it in my hip back pocket and just be able to just grab it as a grab and go, as opposed to like maybe having to grab the bag. It's again, it's like a first world problem, right? Like,
No, I
I,
genuinely want to hear that though, because
but
I hear both things. Some people say I only eat one bar, but thankfully you have the zipper pouch seal. I'll
yeah,
just zip the other bar back up and I'll put it in my
yeah,
bag. But anyway,
yeah. Okay, cool. So I going now to, I guess we're talking about customers a little bit and their ideas and your ideas, but can you tell me a moment when a customer story or review hit really hard, like in a good way, or a bad way? Like, because I know it's great that you have these meals. I'm sure you've heard all these cool stories of someone eating your meal on, I don't know, Everest versus like, somewhere, but any kind of testimony video, like, wow, that really is why I'm doing what I'm doing.
yeah, I'll say I remember my first like bad one, and then I remember probably maybe I've gotten emotional on a couple reviews, and there are a couple that come to mind, and strangely they all fall into the same category. But the bad one was I remember when I launched that Kickstarter, I launched the Kickstarter, and then after that I was trying to figure out how to make all these products because I was also wondering if the Kickstarter goes really small, with a couple thousand, I'll just make them in my mom's kitchen.
Yeah.
If it goes huge, I'll figure out a manufacturer. If it goes medium, which is frankly what it felt like, if it went medium, I got to find like a co-packer to help make these. And I remember in that process of finding the co-packer, I was like, "Hey, Kickstarter supporters, this is going to be it's going to be a month delayed." And I remember somebody just wrote
Yeah.
me this message and just had venom in them, and they were like, "Another stupid startup, like how you think you can make this, and like." How you don't know what you're doing. And I remember like I was at my mom's house and I was just working so much and I
Yeah.
cared and I was like, it really affected me. And I remember
Yeah.
that and I was like, oh man, like I really screwed up here. Like I should have known better. And I think in what I actually now if I would have gotten that, I think I would have much thicker skin. Because people say shit all the time on
Yeah.
YouTube, like, oh, like, hey, you look whatever. This
Yeah.
guy looks
Yeah.
like an idiot or whatever. Now I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. I don't have that thick skin, but I remember that first bad one, and then I would say the good emotional ones. I think there are probably like three that I've gotten that have all fallen under old people in nursing homes,
Yeah.
and there's something with old people that just gets me emotional.
Yeah.
And they were talking about, my grandmother's old and passing and was living off of these, and she really enjoyed them. And those types of emails and messages would really get through to me, and those would
Yeah.
be emotional. And I was like, oh wow, this is one interesting. I didn't know that nursing homes were would or some of these people would be liking this, but yeah, those are the emotional ones. But then, yeah, I mean, there are also just plenty of cool people doing really cool stuff that will say that they've used Greenbelly. That those are just fun,
Yeah.
He's hearing somebody does something cool, and then they were eating Greenbelly while they were doing it.
Like hanging off El Cap, and they're just
Right.
Eating Greenbelly,
Yeah,
and you're just
Greenbelly's
going,
definitely been on El Cap, which is
yeah,
cool.
that's
I
awesome.
just watched The Dark Wizard. Have you seen that?
Oh, dude, I love that. I told my wife we have to watch that again because that was incredible.
Dude, I was watching it. I almost didn't know if I was gonna watch the second episode because the first one I felt like it was fairly dark,
Yeah,
surprise, and depressing, but I thought it got better as the second and third and fourth episode, but
yeah,
I loved it. I thought it was fantastic.
yeah. I only watched it because I didn't even hear about it until I saw like a clip from Alex Honnold where like an Instagram reel or something where it's saying like they cast him as the villain, you know, and making it like all the clips because even like afterwards he was in an interview I saw him say like I said all kinds of other good stuff but they just kind of cast me as the villain and I was like oh that's fine with me, you know, like I can't read the guy, you know.
You're right. There was real tension from the viewer's perspective between
Yeah,
those two climbers.
yeah, that was an incredible, and it's one of those documentaries where you know what's going to happen to the guy but for some reason I'm like hoping he doesn't die. And I'm like, but I know
Right.
he's dead, but I don't
Right.
know why I'm thinking that, you know,
I
uh,
knew he was dead too, and strangely, I kept thinking to myself, maybe I didn't know that. Maybe he is still alive. Like,
yeah,
because I was also like, I climb actually a decent amount, but I've never been like a climbing, like a huge climbing fan. I
yeah,
don't like follow all this, the big guys and stuff.
yeah,
So I was like, maybe I didn't misheard that. So I was kind of buying into that too. I was
yeah.
like, maybe he's still alive.
I actually, after I watched that, I talked to another person somewhere. It was like I was talking to him on the phone, and an older gentleman, and he was like, "Oh, I used to climb all these mountains, and I ran into him a bunch of times on the mountain." I was like, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea you even knew him." Like, I feel like I'm talking to someone famous, you know?
Wow.
So, all right, so I'm going to wind down just a little bit, and then from there, I'll just kind of ask you a couple of like I call them the little quick questions to kind of get to know you a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I guess in that vein of just what we're talking about, what's the weirdest, most unexpected place that your product has ever shown up?
Dang. I don't know if I have a good answer. Okay. I'll say, I don't know if this is weird, but it was surprising. I remember seeing, I think it was an episode of Meat Eater.
Uh-huh.
Do you know
All
that
right.
Steven Ranella
Yeah.
guy?
Yeah.
There was I don't know if somebody told us about it or if I was watching it. I don't know. I think I would have been watching it because I'm not a big hunter, but there was this like guy making a food bag and
Yeah.
there's just Greenbelly sliding across the Netflix. I was like, oh, that's cool. Greenbelly's on Netflix. So
That's
that was
awesome.
probably the weirdest one, seeing Greenbelly on Netflix. Are these rapid fire questions? Am I doing this too
No, no,
slowly?
not yet, not yet. I
Okay.
got
Oh,
one more
okay.
question,
Okay.
and then we'll go into the rapid fire. I guess if for someone who's at the beginning of the trailhead of their business, is there one piece of advice? This is the last question related to business, but is there one piece of advice that you give to someone who's at the beginning of the trailhead of their business?
This is really corny and cliche,
Go for it.
but I would say think about your monetization slash marketing channel before you stress too much about building up the business, so to speak. I think a lot of people have a tendency to be building this product that they don't know if anybody's actually going to buy. They start thinking about their operations, manufacturer, all their licenses, all this kind of stuff. And like at the end of the day, most businesses fail, I think, because they haven't done a good job identifying a good profitable marketing channel.
Yeah.
So I think I would be way over index on that as opposed to trying to build out all these other things you think you should build out because I don't know, you're supposed to or something.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's really good advice. I always love those snippets of advice from people because I just want to make a book of like everybody I have on the pod of their little like
There's
note,
snippets.
note to self. All right, so I'm gonna go into the rapid fire round, but before I do, how can people find Greenbelly online?
Greenbelly.com or the handle's at Greenbelly right now for YouTube. I'm calling it Chris Cage now. I might update the handle to my name as well soon, but we're on YouTube. It's Chris Cage right now.
Okay, perfect. All right, without further ado, we'll get to the rapid fire round. All right, so first question I'd love to ask is your favorite national park?
Oh, fun one. Oh, wait, this is rapid fire. Sorry.
No, you're good. It's not that fast. It's
Okay.
slow trigger.
Dang. There are a lot of good ones, Craig.
Yeah, pick one.
All right, I'm going to go. This is corny. I'm just going to say Shenandoah just because I saw so many bears there.
Okay, awesome. That's the first time I've heard anybody say Shenandoah. So, all right, tent, hammock, or cowboy camping?
Tent.
Tent.
100%.
Is that, I feel like it's that, when I hear people say tent, they usually say it's because they just love that fake feeling of security inside.
So, more for protection. I sleep poorly in the hammock, and cowboy camping. I'm not gonna sleep outside if I go cowboy camping.
Yeah. All right, mountains, forest, desert, or coast?
Mountains.
Mountains. Solo hike or crew mission?
When I was younger, solo. Now crew.
Yeah. Worst trail snack you've ever tried?
Spam.
Really? Spam?
I think it's just gross.
Okay.
Does that count as a trail snack?
Spam. I just had spam before I got on with you.
Dude.
My wife made this like rice wrapped with spam with a rice paper roll, Asian-y kind of collabby thing.
I'll say in some ways it was not as bad as I was expecting, but I think just the presentation, knowing that it's like meat in a blender, just the concept grosses me out.
Yeah. All right, what's the best trail snack? And you can't say your own meals. What's the best trail snack you've ever had, aside from your own?
I've said this before. I've said both these before, but I'll say it again. Pork rinds and seaweed.
I figured you were going to say pork rinds, and I just recently heard you say somewhere seaweed. Are you talking about like the Asian packets of like dried seaweed?
Yeah, like a salty. I mean, they have them at a lot of grocery stores. You can get them in different packages, but I think I would say most of the time I go backpacking, I bring seaweed, and I kind of have this thing about getting greens every day, and I think when I go out on the trail, I just want some greens. Yeah,
we eat that all the time at our house. We have our pantry is full of seaweed, and we have different types.
You have spam and seaweed.
Yeah. All right, a couple more. If you could collab with any brand, who would it be and why?
Ooh. I started working on a bear canister years ago. Yeah. And I met with Grant, coincidentally a couple times, Grant from Bear Vault at Trail Days. And I was like, hey, I've been working on a bear cannon that collapses. And he was like, oh, like I could tell he was like, he didn't say anything, but I could tell he was like scrambling. And then I saw him again, and he was like, hey, we launched one, the collapsible. So I'm not saying by any means he like stole that from me. I think like they were working on it as well. Yeah. But I think I kind of wish I would have like talked to him about maybe collabing on that. That would have been a fun product to launch because I've been working on it, and that would have just made sense for a lot of reasons. But so maybe they can come out with a Greenbelly version that's translucent green instead of blue. I know. Hey, Grant, if you're listening, let's go. All right, and last question: the biggest splurge you've ever made for your business? Splurge implies luxury, right? Or like, because I'm thinking, I guess I think splurge, like, what's the biggest waste of money I've ever done? Yeah. All right, waste of money. I bought a machine to make bars in China, and I visited a ton of machine factories, and I ended up never even shipping it to the US, and I couldn't get my money back. I paid 50% deposit for it and lost it. Oh crap. Dang. Yeah. This was happening all around COVID, and like I couldn't even go back to China. There's so much political tension going on with the US and China. I also just didn't know if it even actually made sense to be bringing this machine into a space. I didn't know if I wanted to take on the manufacturing ownership on my own. So I felt like I got super hot and bothered about this machine, and ultimately it just fell through. It wasn't a ton of money, but I mean, it was the largest just thrown away money purchase I've ever made. Oh yeah. Time and money too, right? Yeah, exactly. Time and money. But I mean, I think in many ways it was kind of a blessing in disguise. Yeah. I do not want that huge machine here. Yeah. That's cool. Well, that's crazy. Well,
Chris, thank you so much for being on the pod, and everybody, thank you so much for listening. And I'm sure I'll see you at another event somewhere, Chris. And really, I learned a ton today about Greenbelly, and I can't wait to see the other videos you guys have coming out in the near future.
Dude, I want to check out Asian Mom, White Dad.
Yeah. Do it. Subscribe to that channel. You'll
Yeah,
probably
link below.
laugh. Yes. Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Talk to you later.
All right, Craig, thanks.